We are now moving into the second hour, and I'm going to briefly introduce Francis Anderton, our moderator for the next hour. Francis Anderton covers Los Angeles design and architecture in prints, radio, podcast, and public events. She also programs talks, exhibits, and events at the Helms Bakery district in Los Angeles. And she's currently working on a book. Thank you, Francis, for taking the time off today from your writing and joining us. I let the word now to Francis Anderton.
Well, hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, good. Well, it's actually really an honor to be included in this day. I feel very much like I'm at the bottom step of a high staircase in terms of understanding and becoming part of this whole conversation that I think is incredibly valuable. I come at this as someone that has largely covered architecture and construction for many years, but at the same time feels an almost sort of visceral pang at the losses in a way that are incurred, you know, every time we humans, you know, construct our way through the wilderness. And that's probably a very simplistic take on this entire conversation, but it's what sort of, I guess, personally informs me. So anyway, I'm taking on the theme of coexistence and ecological knowledge, which encompasses dynamic information embedded in deep time, interrelated systems, and layered analysis, urging us to explore how all species are entangled within the larger ecosystem. So a very interesting topic. I'm looking forward to learning about it from three people who bring very different ways into this theme: a scientist, a filmmaker, and an artist, all exploring and figuring out ways, I guess, to manifest this ecological knowledge. So our three guests are, and I hope you're there because the way my Zoom is working, I can't see whether you're there, but those three guests are Michael Bell. Michael Bell is director of the Point Conception project at the Jack and Laura Dangermond Preserve in California. He himself led the negotiations to acquire the site, 24,000 acres and more, are located at Point Conception up the coast from Los Angeles. He has 2 decades of experience designing and executing conservation projects that have protected large areas of ocean and terrestrial natural systems. Peter Stonier, he's a filmmaker for ESRI, ESRI. Its tagline is the science of where. And this is a company based in the Bay Area. It provides mapping and spatial analytics that it applies to many challenges and concerns and questions, including that of the land. Our third speaker is going to be Maria Magdalena Campos Pons. She's an artist. She works in diverse media. It includes photography, performance, painting, sculpture, film, video. Maria, who also goes by Magda, grew up in Cuba on a sugar plantation in a family that has Nigerian, Hispanic, and Chinese roots. Her work is deeply shaped by that heritage, and her work is also seen as an exponent of the new Cuban art movement that arose in the late Soviet period on the island. Her work is held in major museum collections, including the Smithsonian Institution, the Whitney, the Art Institute of Chicago, the National Gallery of Canada, the Museum of Modern Art, and many other institutions. So very excited to hear from all of you. The way the hour is going to unfold is each of our speakers is going to give a presentation that will last around 10 minutes, and then we will talk for around 20 minutes between us, and then we will move to questions. So put up all your thoughts and questions in the chat. We're going to start with Michael. Michael, are you there? And can you kick us off?
I am here.
There you are. Good morning.
Yeah, hello everyone. And just a quick note, my name tag for some reason on the Zoom is coming up as Richard Molina. It's actually Michael Bell.
Richard's at NAHR, I believe.
Yes.
I think it's just a computer thing.
Yeah, it's a production thing. We'll change it while you speak. Don't worry.
Very good.
Michael, go.
Hello everyone. I'm excited to be here and be able to present. I really like the theme of this session, coexistence and ecological knowledge. I think all of us on this call can agree that the world faces absolutely unprecedented environmental challenges facing nature and humankind and all species. And meeting these challenges will require learning and new forms of learning, the advancement of our ecological knowledge. So today I'm going to speak about an effort to develop some new approaches to how we expand that learning using the platform of an exciting new nature preserve on the coast of California, known as the Jack and Laura Dangermond Preserve. It's a big topic. I don't have much time, so I will move pretty quickly and speak at the high level here. Slide. Very quickly, a little background on who the Nature Conservancy is. It's the largest conservation organization in the world. It was established in 1951. It's protected over 120 million acres of land. It works in 79 countries. It engages in a lot of other strategies beyond land protection, like water management, and fire, and sustainable fisheries, and other things. It also has a chapter in all 50 of the states in the United States. Slide. Slide. So the beginning of this story starts in late 2017 when the Nature Conservancy acquired and protected 25,000 acres surrounding Point Conception in Southern California, now known as the Jack and Laura Dangermond Preserve. This conservation transaction was made possible by a large gift from Jack and Laura Dangermond, $165 million. Really setting a record and representing the largest gift ever to the Nature Conservancy by a single donor. And it protected truly the last large wild place along this urban gradient of Southern California here at Point Conception. Slide. There is really so much I can tell you about this place. Its attributes are absolutely endless, but here's a few. It has a remarkable and intact connection to our marine environment. It is connected and adjacent to the Point Conception State Marine Reserve. So the land-sea interaction is natural interaction is very much intact there. Slide. It has 8 miles of incredible coastline, a place where wildlife still, mountain lions, bobcats, bears still hunt and forage along the beaches all the way up to the highest peaks on this property. Slide. And it contains the entirety of the Jalama Creek watershed, which is for Southern coastal California, is a very intact watershed. And entirely contained on the property, and presents some huge opportunities for restoration and science. Slide. The property is also incredibly important culturally speaking. This is the ancestral home of the Chumash people with 10,000 years of human ecology here. And the artifacts, the sacred sites, the historic villages are very much intact on this property, presenting some incredible learning opportunities. We are advancing research with the Smithsonian. That's Tori Rick of the Smithsonian in the bottom left-hand corner. And we're also working in very close partnership with the San Ynez Band of Chumash Indians. And that's Brian Holguin next to him, who's a member of that band, and also an archaeologist with the University of California at Santa Barbara. Slide. So it's incredibly important that we preserve this place, and we'll keep it preserved and well managed, hopefully in perpetuity. But it's just as important that we think about how to use an incredible piece of nature like this intact as a learning platform. And it has attributes that really make it an incredible platform for conservation breakthroughs. I won't read through all of these, but one I want to point out is this is truly a world-class site for conservation research, but it's easy to get to. This is two hours from this isn't Antarctica or some distant coral reef island. This is 2 hours from Los Angeles. This is in close proximity to the offices of JPL, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratories, and many big and incredible universities in California, such as the University of California, Santa Barbara. So it really has the ingredients to be quite a center for learning. And we've begun, and we've engaged in these activities already. Slide. And just in the last 2 years, between 2018, the beginning of the preserve slide, and 2020, we've already kicked off on a host of research projects on the property. Slide. And this was made possible by a very dynamic and robust partnership of organizations that includes the Smithsonian and the University of California, Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, NASA, and many other institutions. But like I mentioned in the beginning, what we and our partners felt identified as important is that we not only continue on in science and learning in the sort of business as usual way, but we invest some time thinking about how we can best utilize this platform. Slide. So in 2019, we pulled together 40 of really the top conservation research minds in the world to help us think about this question. What should a research enterprise on the Dangermond Preserve look like? Slide. And I'm just sharing a few quotes that came out of this 4-day workshop. Slide. And slide. I won't go through all of these quotes, but this middle one was interesting, from Dr. Lucas Joppa, the Chief Environmental Officer of Microsoft, talking about, we're in a day and age where, you can ask your phone how to get to the nearest Starbucks and it'll run the most complicated algorithm, give you the shortest route. But in this age of information, when it comes to our understanding our environmental systems, it's really a complete and total information drought. We're not using the tools in the same way. And this is the sector, conservation, that we're hoping will play a big role in protecting this world for the future. So slide. So what this group challenged us after spending 4 days of working together, touring the preserve and discussing this idea of how to best utilize this platform is really this idea of moving from individual learning to collaborative learning. Typically, a great research and field station would operate by allowing research teams to come. They would develop exciting, compelling information streams using all sorts of techniques like the ones described here. But then they would leave the site. They would take their data and information with them, and maybe some years later they would publish. And we've achieved some incredible learning through that approach, but it's somewhat siloed, and there are some other approaches that may be more productive. And so what they've challenged us to do is really think about how to drive collaboration, facilitate collaborations, so that these groups spend some time working together, identifying what are the most important and relevant things to study. They commit to sharing that data in real time, and then we invest in the technologies and the data science so we can merge all of this information in real time, make it easily accessible for people participating in science here. And our thesis is that will drive bigger and faster breakthroughs in conservation, understanding our natural world and understanding what we have to do to protect it in this changing climates and changing systems. So you could call this sort of introducing conservation to the digital revolution or big data strategy, and it's happening in a lot of places in conservation, but we think this could be a site of excellence for that effort. And this sort of digital revolution kind of work is all around us. Slide. We used it to address the pandemic, you probably have heard of the John Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center and Dashboard. Here, a huge coalition of groups are merging information streams from thousands of sources. ESRI is playing a huge role in spatializing this information. And it's required, we needed big data, and we needed this sort of these sort of approaches in order to manage for this global pandemic. Slide. And this is the way NASA operates now. NASA is no longer a single monolith organization figuring out how to land people on the moon. It's working in collaboration with many for-profit and nonprofits and universities. It's developing the cyber infrastructure to collect information, share information, and that's resulted in our advancements like landing Perseverance on Mars most recently. Slide. And we're turning to these same kind of principles and concepts in managing our cities. Slide. Water, for example, water systems in our cities is a tremendously complex system, from supply to distribution to use, costing and markets. We now are developing the IT infrastructure, cyber infrastructure, so we can collect data from all of those sources, understand our water system, and manage it most effectively and sustainably. So how do we do this on the preserve? Slide. One exciting area is in watershed research. We are working with NASA and the UC system and many others to capture information streams across the Halama watershed. Slide. So that we can understand how this complex watershed system works in a changing climate, answering questions like, as precipitation regimes change, how does that change groundwater recharge? How does that change water available for nature and water available for human beings? Big, complicated questions that are relevant to many communities around the world. That if we work in collaboration and using these techniques, we think we can speed up our findings and our breakthroughs. Slide. Another example is using Point Conception and the Dangermond Preserve as a place to monitor changes in species ranges, biodiversity ranges in the face of climate change. So we can merge a variety of data sources, from tracking white sharks with buoys to monitoring shellfish movements and terrestrial species movements. The Dangermond Preserve sits at this sort of intersection between two marine systems and two terrestrial systems, making it really an exceptional place to monitor the changes in our natural world as it relates to climate change, and figuring out how we best manage our world so these species can survive. Slide. I'll skip this slide. And so this requires a lot of investment and a lot of work. We're sort of, quote, wiring up the preserve so that we can capture data, we can share data, we can assess that data. That could be made available to research teams around the world. And so, this is a little bit of what that looks like, putting out sensors and telemetry devices so that this information can be captured in real time and made available to the partners we work with and the communities we hope to work with in the future. Slide. And again, just sort of going back to the overall thesis here is, the idea here is really to capture data inputs and contributions that are made by many communities, to invest in the sort of the technology. We call it building a digital twin, a central data repository for all of that information, to work in collaborations and engage across many communities and partners, to use that information to develop breakthroughs and findings, and then apply that learning. And again, we think the collective impact could be greater than the individual impact, getting us to faster, more adaptive conservation in the places we need it. Slide. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Michael, thank you so much. So interesting, many questions to ask you coming up. So Peter, is Peter there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Peter. Great to meet you online, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yep. Okay. So feel free to cut me off because I'm not going to be watching the time. So just when my time's done, just tell me. Yeah, quite a coincidence. Had no idea, Michael, you were going to be here today, and you're on the Jack Dangermond Reserve, and I work for Jack Dangermond.
Tell everybody who Jack Dangermond is.
He is, oh my God, he established this company that focuses on geographic information systems 50 years ago. It's one of the oldest and hyper successful technology companies in the United States. And it's all about mapping and putting data on maps. It's sort of like Google on steroids. In fact, you just saw that Johns Hopkins map we're all aware of. That was actually created with ESRI software. So, and he is a dedicated environmentalist who funds and promotes all kinds of environmental projects. But you work for Jen Morris, and I used to work with Jen Morris at Conservation International. So yes, my background is as a filmmaker and television producer. Worked in Hollywood many years ago, ran away screaming, I'm a refugee. Went to work for the BBC for a number of years, but most relevant here, I was a Sony filmmaker in residence at Conservation International for nearly a decade, where I did a lot of co-production with National Geographic, and now I work for Jack Dangermond doing some environmental films. So yeah, so I thought I would show, some different examples of work. Given the theme of this conference, one of the things I've tried to do is relate these notions of interrelated systems and layered analysis through mainly short films, which is incredibly challenging thing to do because film can be, not the greatest medium for conveying complexity. But done it in all kinds of different ways. So I'll just cut to the chase and share my screen, make sure that works, and start showing you some very different examples of trying to do that and whether they're effective and actually helping out the environment. So, are you seeing my screen?
Yep. Blue skies, clouds.
Good. Okay, so this is a campaign, did it National Geographic, general environmental awareness campaign that involved many celebrities.
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
right. So this was called the Nature is Speaking campaign. The approach was to take different forces of nature and give them a voice. Now this was the hero piece. The voice is that of Mother Nature, played by Julia Roberts. And this was kind of the iconic film around which all the other ones were created. We have Harrison Ford playing the ocean. That's the angriest of all of these. Then we have Ed Norton playing soil. We have Penelope Cruz playing fresh water. And after we did this round of pieces they were all launched at one of the major UN climate conferences and played on air where all policymakers could see them. We did localized versions around the world. There were a whole set of Brazilian celebrities we worked with to do pieces that were about rainforest, and Chinese celebrities that we worked with. So this was about raising awareness. It's certainly, when you take all these films and combine them, they have, as I understand, like over 400 million views collectively worldwide. And we could ask the question though, is that helpful in doing anything about saving the environment? Okay, so I thought, just given the theme of what our conference is, this is actually not an environmental film, but it is an advertisement for ESRI. It was the first time ESRI did a national commercial, which I produced. And what it does do, though, it's an approach to trying to convey an ecosystem, which is a generally difficult thing, albeit this is an urban ecosystem. So for, that reason, I thought I would show it.
When you look at the world, what do you see? Where others see chaos, we see patterns. Connections. Relationships. When you use location technology, you can see where things happen before they happen. With ESRI location technology, you can see what others can't.
Okay. Picking up some audio there from someplace. Anyway, so those kind of in the big commercial space, going out to mass audiences, raising brand awareness in both cases. But personally, I prefer to work on projects that are more specifically targeted, where I know something actually can happen. And this is a much smaller film. This is one I did for ESRI. And the goal of this is to promote a joint venture with National Geographic called the Conservation Intelligence Program, in order to get more parks and reserves to use GIS to protect wildlife.
My name is Naftali Honig, and I work for African Parks Network in Garamba National Park in the Congo. You can see the park from outer space. It's a beautiful park. It's a very, very special ecosystem. The national park itself is this gorgeous savanna where you get a lot of savanna species. Armed groups that are coming in from sometimes 1,000 kilometers away to come and hunt elephants in the park. These poachers are very, very violent. We've sadly lost 2 rangers in 1 year. We lost 3 rangers the next year. The poachers are good at surviving in the bush. How do we visualize where they are? GIS is definitely helping a lot. The poachers follow the water. And if you know where the sources of water are, and you can map that, or if you know where viable places to cross a river are, and you can map that, you have a huge advantage over the poachers. They don't have that bird's eye view of the park. I'm really excited about being able to attack these problems. There are metrics like losing fewer elephants, which are really, really encouraging.
And then one very last thing I thought I would show, just because it's a bit of a extraordinary case in terms of audience, where, you know, the first thing I showed was intended for audiences of as many people as possible. This is the beginning of the film. I'm just going to show the first minute of it. That was intended for an audience of 1, the president of Colombia. He was newly elected, not very interested in environmental issues. We worked with his environmental minister to do a film to get him to extend parkland around Bogota, all through the lens of defense. You won't actually see that in the open, but it does set up the environmental issue.
Detrás de mí está Bogotá, una ciudad de más de 8.5 millones de habitantes. Casi el mismo número de habitantes de Nueva York o Londres. La escuela de mi hijo queda acá. Y mayor al número de habitantes de Río de Janeiro, Hong Kong o El Cairo. Mi oficina queda por allá. Como es el caso de todas las grandes ciudades del mundo, la demanda de agua es enorme. Cada uno de nosotros necesitamos 5 galones de agua por día solo para sobrevivir, y eso sin contar el resto de nuestros requerimientos. Pero existe una gran diferencia aquí. Estamos muy arriba. Con 2.600 metros de altitud, Bogotá es una de las ciudades importantes de mayor altura en el planeta. ¿Y en qué afecta esto el agua? Intente subir una montaña cargando un balde de agua. El agua pesa, Si la mayoría del agua de Bogotá fuera transportada desde un punto más bajo que la ciudad, hubiese que moverla con bombas, pero esto costaría una fortuna. Entonces, ¿de dónde proviene nuestra agua? La realidad es que nuestra agua proviene de uno de los lugares más extraordinarios del mundo. De un lugar donde existe una asombrosa, pero frágil máquina natural que produce el agua. Esta agua es necesaria para que Bogotá prospere.
And it goes on to describe this whole ecosystem, which is the ecosystem we're trying to protect in order to protect the water supply for Bogota.
Great, Peter, thank you so much. This is so interesting. If you don't mind, our time is starting to run along, and we must hear from Magda. So can we pick this up in a few moments after we've pivoted over to Magda for a few? These films are very inspirational and prompt some questions for sure. Magda, are you there?
I am here.
Great. Let's welcome.
I am here, and I want to say how amazing it is to be speaking in the company of Michael and Peter. And I am really overtaken by the beauty of the presentation of they both has proposed to us. And I am going to start showing my slide here. Let me see if this works.
Working.
Okay. Oops, I did something wrong. Okay. Could I have it in oops. Could I have it in a full screen? Could you do that? Or
You have to do that. You have to switch screen you're sharing.
Okay.
You can move the screen from one to the other.
Wait, this is not what I want.
I can share it for you.
Just give me a second.
Okay. Sure.
Michael, you were right about saying don't do that. Then you get in trouble. And but I will get this.
On the top left corner, click on End Show.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you're going to do it?
I can do it. Yes. Let me.
All right. All right.
Yeah, because we are very short in time, so we need to try.
So I am. This is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to really share from my side, but you could go ahead and put it in.
You have to enable me, Richard.
And I don't know if I did some things.
Well, there you go, Magda. I'm sure if you just click on each image, why don't we just go through the images?
I am. So go ahead for the next one, but I wanted to have it in a full screen, so you could do that for me.
Yeah, if you can keep going, sorry, so you can speak about. Yeah, start to introduce yourself. Otherwise,
so I'm coming here from the perspective of art making and to being a practitioner, but also I wanted to say that from listening my colleagues speaking this morning, few things come to my mind that are important. I would have choose few different slides or image after hearing both Michael and Peter, but I still thinking that what I have here would be maybe illustrated in some way the ideas that I want to bring to the table. I come from Cuba, from the coastal city of Matanzas. And this first image that I'm showing to you, I didn't take it. It's also come from a marine biologist from the city of Matanzas, who is engaged to really introduce the younger generation of African Cuban to the coast and to the water of the region. Why water and why the ocean? In thinking about the land and in thinking about this conversation of coexistence and interdependence, I want to propose that in the case of an artist of African origin in this part of the world, in the Caribbean, our presence here is a presence that was the result of a very violent historical exchange and historical events that not only affected our presence in this land, but the presence in the land of the people that were here. I am speaking to you this afternoon from Miami, home of the Seminoles Indian, and I want to honor and acknowledge that every place that we touch ground in America, we touch ground in a place that have ancestral legacy that is fundamental. And people like myself, coming from an ancestry of Black individuals coming from Africa, we were removed from our land of origin historically and land in a land that was not ours. This is important. Not owning your land, not owning the ground in which you put the feet, of being in that way, remind of this kind of condition. So in thinking of that, I wanted to own the ocean. I wanted to give the ocean not only the territorial place that is in the planet, but also become body, become self. So this image from 1994 is an image in homage to Yemaya, a goddess of the water, but also embodied as individual, as a mother figure. When I was thinking of Peter, given the earth, this turned the conversation of motherland before us and after us. In people of ancestry from Africa, another part of the world, not necessarily Westerner, we relate to the land with a sense of reverie and ceremonially. So this piece is a bit about that, but also because we think that the land itself has life and is an entity in its own that think, breathe, talk, and express their feeling. This is what in that film that I used to say, the land, nature doesn't need us. We need nature. But I am thinking more, we are the same thing, nature and ourselves. We are just a small part of expression of nature. In America, in this land, after the Civil Wars, Abraham Lincoln proposed the idea that all the slave Black needed to receive 40
acres and a mule.
40 acres and the mule. A proposal that is still not fulfilled. And again, I want to refer to this when the land is not yours. When you feel that you exist in a land in which you're belonging and your presence is questioned. So in this realm, I am trying to propose to us in a relation that is not only here in the air, but in this universe. So this piece, Elevator, spoke a little bit about the idea of belonging and existence, not only in the ground, but above, below, the center. I am thinking, and I am again here, next slide, our own relation with this bird view, no? When we could see the land that maybe we belong from above and located ourselves there. So all my work is I would say, a metaphorical conversation with the sense of belonging, but also what I call, and I don't take, and this is not my phrase, I am taking this in a way from an important philosopher, Mbembe, who say repair. Achille Mbembe talk about repairing, not only repairing democracy, not only repairing history, but also we are obliged to repair our relations with our land. So here, a place that is neither this land or that land, but also this space that I call when the body in exile is located in limbo, is thinking of an island, dreaming of an island, but the island in front of the subject, it doesn't relocate precisely or indicate the land of the beginning, of the land of origin, but another land of maybe when one feel a stranger or a visitor. We are visiting Earth as we are visitors in the universe. Next, thinking of it, in front of that ocean, from where we arrive, not only in the development of the species, but as bodies in this part of the world, but also exploring and imagine the sea, the ocean, as a space of reflection, as a space to think, to cure. In art, we speak about curare, curatorial, curating. I thinking about Alexandra when she was mentioned in the beginning, this sense of I think that she speak about possible a sense of returning. We are always returning. We always return to the land. We return to where we come, essentially, in our cycle of life. But I also think about this idea of returning in a metaphorical way as well. The next. Again, limbo, migration, exile, transformation, a circularity of being, a circularity of self, either ocean or blizzard, neither, and a space of possibility to imagine our relations with this planet and with this locality. Next. This ocean that from where we get so much, when we need to return so much, and when we still not completely understanding the merging of the two waters, ocean and river. This is no art, this is an observation. Keeping everything in balance. Remember that if not for balance, we end in a situation that is no good for anybody, not to the planet, not for the people, not to the universe. So this piece in which I talk about different heritage, but also this fundamental idea of keeping balance. Next. Living in pandemic, microbes, bacteria, virus, and us all together in a perfect mingling, in a perfect organism in which one thing sustains the other. Next. Next image. Curare in español es curandera, to heal, to clean, to really help the benessere of the body and the planet. So spiritual forces to cure the body. Next, to elevate it, to sustain it in the middle, in levitation, in a space of permanent existence and relation with. Next. Elevata. Next.
It's coming, sorry.
And the next slide, I want to refer to the idea of living together. When we talk about interdependence of our ecosystem, I am thinking not only the interdependence of the different species that constitute nature, but our own relations as human. As Michael was showing in his presentation, Perseverance arriving in Mars, I saw the launching of Perseverance and I was full of emotion and full of questions. As we land in Mars, we are still fighting here for bitter and little things. As we explore all the possibilities of the universe, we are still having our own species in their own coexisting and interdependence, dying, living in the street. We have arrived to the moment of technology in which we could send a small robot 7 months across the universe and self-directed by computers in our head and make it landed, but we cannot feed our people. We cannot feed our own species. How could we talk honestly and with sense of truth about coexisting and interdependence, and not putting in the center of the conversation those dynamic of unbalance. So for me, as an artist, this idea, this proposition, I know that she cannot keep advancing, but here, this is a piece in which it's about real moons and artificial moons made by myself in video, but it's about the proximity that everything that happened in the cosmos, in the universe, have a sister, brother, twinned reference here in the ground, in our little planet where we are together. Next, we are the same things. I am an owl, the owl is me, I felt it, I sense it, we exist. And this last piece is called the rise of the butterfly's eyes. And I am just searching and investigating butterflies. And in Yoruba tradition, when somebody passes away, we believe that the body becomes another entity at the universe. So the cycle of restoration, the cycle of repair, the cycle of renewal, the cycle of evolving, coming back to when you become before, previous one for the second, is there. So I am making this series of work. This is in homage of Breonna Taylor, whose life was taken away in his own experiment of coexisting as human in the planet. And then I seen that she has become butterflies, and I want to make an entire set of pieces about this. Next. You are crying, I am crying, we all are crying by the crime that we're committing, destroying our planet, destroying our soil, destroying people. We are all voyeurs of the butchery. Next. So in Matanzas, where I started a biennial and a resident for artists to come together and try to save the locality of this little chunk of air that belonged to them, we start planting palm trees, who were not only decimated when the arrival of the Spaniards to produce one of the earliest capitalist grade production, sugar, but also still being decimated until now by other kind of horrendous agricultural practice. So the artists of the city are starting a project to plant royal palm tree. I am here showing that I still carrying the plant of my soul, the red soil of Matanzas. Next. And I am here praying to the skies and the heaven that may be merciful in the work that we do in the time of crypto capitalism in the air, and that may be peace and prosperity and sustainability and renewal of life be maintained and exist in our planet. Thank you.
Maria Magdalena Campos Pons, thank you so much. Amazing work. And golly, we now have 7 minutes left, and there's some very big questions to ask and answer. But I think the first one actually has to go to Michael. I think, Michael, you need to respond, if you will, to what Magda raised, which is, here we are sending Perseverance to Mars, and yet we have a damaged planet and a damaged an economic system that damages the world, and we need to put interspecies coexistence at the center of our lives and policy making, and not be continuing to advance to other planets and perpetuate, I guess, extremely damaging modes of development. Can you respond to her about that?
Well, I agree 100%. I think that Magda and I see eye to eye on this. If we're capable of doing something like landing Perseverance on Mars, shouldn't that investment, shouldn't those advancements in learning methodologies, shouldn't those technologies be applied to what we have to do on our planet first? I'm not sure I have much more to say.
And I guess the question is, whether technology always has the answer. I have to say, I did have a question lodged in my mind as I watched Peter's beautiful films, but the very first one was really interesting to me, the one where Julia Roberts narrates the story of Mother Nature. And there was a line that jumped out in that film in which the line is, people need nature. And I have to say, Peter, I'm curious, did you have editorial discussions about whether to say people need nature or people are nature? Because it seems that one of the themes, and certainly one that Magda's work embodies so beautifully and eloquently, is that we are nature, we are interconnected, that we cannot keep separating ourselves from our flora and our fauna and our other species. And that's kind of the problem, that we do that. So why did you say people need nature, not people are nature?
Well, yes, I mean, it's considered one of the great fallacies of humankind that they have separated themselves from nature and see this kind of difference. But that film campaign, I mean, the most direct, honest answer for that is that Harrison Ford was funding this whole project. He's on the board of Conservation International, and that was his line, and he wanted to use it. But also, though, in terms of the context of what is going on, it's coming from that place of people have developed that mindset. And so the message coming out is actually, you're hurting yourself. We are, nature is not, Mother Nature isn't this thing that needs to be protected. I don't care what you do. I'm going to be here, even if you go extinct. So that's the context.
But it I guess it's fairly fundamental, and one of the goals of NAHR, it seems, is to really really embody that thinking that is totally ecosystemic, I guess. And so with that, I have a question for you, Michael, about the Dangermond Preserve, which obviously on the face of it is a great accomplishment and very exciting in terms of all that you're doing there. How it fits in, though, to this larger, I guess, way of understanding our relationship to other species, as Magda elucidates in her work, is do preserves like Dangermond, are they part of our sort of, I suppose, Protestant-infused kind of colonial tradition where we do silo our uses, we don't fully perhaps acknowledge or recognize or want to harness into our lives the fact that our wilderness can't be siloed in this way? Does it still suggest a scientific approach to things that believes that you can sort of silo an ecosystem? Can you do that? I mean, the reason why we have mountain lions sort of dying in Malibu is because they can't cross the freeway, because the freeway has come in and cut off their roaming patterns. And so do these circumscribed preserves ultimately really help us?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say that the Nature Conservancy and many other groups are working on issues such as greening cities and creating wildlife corridors in urban areas. But we also feel it's important that we put aside our best representations of sort of intact natural systems so we can understand how they work. And so that those species and natural systems, have sort of a best refuge as our climate changes in the future. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. And I suppose I agree with you. I would prefer we do this sort of more holistically and think about nature is absolutely everywhere. A plant growing out of a concrete crack in an urban environment is nature. But the fact of the matter is that we have zoned, our terrestrial space into cities, into suburban areas. We have to accept the fact that there is a certain free market system in which land is acquired and developed, and we're sort of unapologetic about entering that market and competing to protect nature. I would like to see that market ultimately changed so that its nature is cultivated and supported and allowed to persist everywhere. But in the meantime, and we may all have diverse opinions about this, in the meantime, an organization like the Nature Conservancy is going to do everything it can to stop the spread of development and impacting a natural area like the Dangermond Preserve. So I think it's both areas we need to work on.
Peter or Magda, do you want to chime in on that point?
Well, one thing very quickly is that actually it's one of the great works of conservation organizations and tools like GIS are used for it, is to figure out what areas are the most essential areas for conserving global ecosystems and focus on conserving those areas. You could think of them as you fundamentally need rainforest in the Amazon. Those are the lungs of the earth. Not every area of land is equally vital for the maintenance of the overall ecosystem. And so for Sylvia Earle, for example, in the oceans, identifies what she calls hope spots. These are reserves to focus on, to be sure that they are kept intact. Ed Wilson has what's called the 50-50 project of trying to conserve 50% of the Earth's ocean and land. And you have to go about trying to find the most essential 50% to conserve. Because you do, I mean, the reality is you have to balance development and nature simultaneously, which is what makes it so complex and difficult.
So,
Magda.
No, I do have a question, because remember, we interrupted a little bit of Peter when he was finishing his presentation. Peter, I am curious, the ecosystem that you were talking is the Sierra de Santa Marta in Colombia, Sierra Nevada.
It's simply the paramos around Bogota, up in the mountain, and they make the water for Bogota. And if they deteriorate, Bogota can't get water because it's too expensive to pump it up from below. The FARC at one point tried to destroy a dam there, destroying the water supply. And this is what we impressed upon the president of Bogota. And it was an area that was being encroached upon with landmines. Not landmines, with gold mining. And he stopped all the gold mining and made it a formal reserve to safeguard the city's water.
Thank you, Peter. And I'm sorry I had to interrupt you earlier, but it was so that we could see Magda's beautiful work that winds up being such a sort of interesting way of opening us up to think about all of this. We are coming very closely to the end of this conversation. We have some points coming in. As Sophia Malone has said to all of us, that even the word nature is being questioned by philosophers. Now that's an interesting contention. Do we all understand nature in the same way?
We are nature. We are part of this incredible. I mean, I am just a visual artist, so my approach to this is more poetical than any other way. But I feel we are. There is this beautiful picture from NASA that is the largest picture ever took it, and we are a dot, a tiny little invisible dot in an incredible universe. Imagine how many other things are out there to be found, to be discovered. But my concern, my profound concern, as the only species that we still know that work in the level of intelligence that we do, we still have a fundamental problem dealing with our own nature as human species. So this is what I want to propose, that this conversation end with the condition of the body and the geography of the body as human right itself, the body itself as territory, and that right to exist and be plentiful, caring for in all his dimension is part of this conversation. Otherwise, I have problems.
Well, Magda, that's a great way to conclude this conversation. We do have to bring it to a close. It's an incredibly interesting topic, and I'm so thrilled to have been able to talk with all three of you. Michael Bell, Director of the Point Conception Project at the Jack and Laura Dangermond Preserve, Peter Stonier, filmmaker for ESRI and for other Sony and many other outlets, and artist Maria Magdalena Campos Pons. I think I throw it back to you, Ilaria, and on we go to the rest of the day. Thank you so much.